Well, more evidence now that food price inflation is beginning to slow, and that while the price you're paying for food is still going up, it's, the experts tell us, going up at a slower rate than it was in the past. The Competition Commission says in its Essential Food Price Monitoring Report, it's noticed changes in the types of food people are buying. Food prices, as you know, have increased so dramatically in the last few years. There's several factors for this: the avian influenza epidemic, load shedding, supply chain disruptions. The Commission also does investigate whether people are charging unreasonable prices and making unreasonable profits. Khalirendwe Ranenyeni is the principal economist at the Competition Commission. Khalirendwe, good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time. Firstly, overall, what kind of changes are we seeing in the prices of essential foods?
Hello, Stephen. I hope you're well. We have observed quite drastic behavior in terms of the food prices that we see. Previously, in our previous editions of the Essential Food Monitoring Report, we had observed a lot of price transmission, so which means consumers were paying much more for food. The rate that the prices of food was going up was much higher than what we are observing now. What we have observed, particularly for eggs and tin fish, is that producers and retailers are actually now absorbing the costs, which means consumers have been protected in the last 6 months of the data that we analyzed.
So from what you can see then, people aren't making an unreasonable profit?
So from what we can see, on average, producers have absorbed some of the costs, and also retailers have absorbed some of the costs. Unfortunately, we are not analyzing, for the purposes of this report, individual firm conduct. So we don't know which company is behaving in which manner. But in aggregate, in terms of the transmission of costs from either the seed or the fish, from the fundamental cost, we are seeing that costs are not being transmitted right through to consumers. They've been absorbed somewhere in the middle of the value chain.
OK, we know that there have been big supply chain problems. Some of that is to do with load shedding. Some of it's been to do with Transnet, for example. That shouldn't really affect food, but load shedding does. When food producing companies have to use generators, when supermarkets have to use generators to power their fridges, for example, that all adds to their cost. Is your report up until the period including the sort of last 40 days or so that we've had no load shedding, or does it not take that into account at this point?
No, unfortunately, Stephen, our report goes up to March 2024, using Stats SA data up to February 2024. So we haven't analyzed the data of the current period where we did not have load shedding.
OK, but presumably if we've had no load shedding, retailers will be saving a little bit of money there.
Presumably, yes.
OK. You can see that, and it's interesting, you say that people are buying more pilchards, more sardines than chicken. In other words, they're moving away from one to the other. And is that just because of the price of chicken?
We don't think it's just because of the price of chicken. We haven't gotten a proper understanding of why such a substitution away from other proteins. We currently don't know whether that is a substitution from red meat to sardines or from chicken to sardines. But on average, we see a substitution away from other proteins in aggregate to sardines. There could be a number of reasons for this. So the first could be the period that we analyzed included the time of load shedding, which means tin fish is easy to store. It's more durable in the midst of electricity cuts. We are also seeing a lot of flavors that are being introduced by tin fish producers. So those could be some of the reasons why we are starting to see an increase in demand of tin fish.
And sometimes just what people eat changes. I mean, there are different trends in food, like they are in fashion, I suppose. What's happening to the chicken price? So, I mean, I remember the price of eggs went up dramatically. At one point, people were importing eggs. They were importing chickens. They had to start their flocks again after that avian influenza epidemic. How have the prices of eggs and chicken changed since then?
The prices of... I'll start with eggs, because eggs is very interesting given what was happening in the last 6 months. What we see with the egg prices, we see producers had increased their prices, and obviously this was expected given that the avian flu really did hit hard on the production level of the breed of the chicks and the chickens that breed eggs. So we see producer prices, they're increasing. We are seeing them starting to trend downwards. So there is a downward trend in the price of producer, in the price that producers charge for eggs. But what we are seeing, which is also interesting, is that the retailers have also absorbed the cost of eggs. So we are seeing retail prices of eggs also coming down in the last 2 months. In terms of chicken, we are seeing a lot of stability in chicken prices. There hasn't been any volatility there, both at the producer level and at the retail level.
And the price of bread, a key food for many, many people. The price of bread at the moment, is that still going up dramatically?
The price of bread, that's not going up dramatically either. We're also seeing a lot of stability on the price of bread, and the margins between those are also narrowing, which is good for consumers.
And Khalirendwe, I mean, we've all seen the price of food going up just so dramatically. I suppose since the end of the pandemic. I know some people say from the moment that Russia invaded Ukraine, you can sort of pick your moment, really. Obviously, as you say, prices are beginning to stabilise, but they're still going up. And if you look at the incomes of most South Africans, you actually, if I understand you say in your note that you're worried about hunger. How worried are you?
No, we're very worried, Stephen, of hunger. What we observed also, which is quite worrisome, is it's a good thing that we observed that food inflation is actually at its lowest since the COVID pandemic. So it's currently at around 5.1%, and that is good for consumers. But we are worried that there are other costs, such as the ones you mentioned, climatic conditions, disruptions in the supply chain, and all of these are contributing to the rise in food prices. So even though we do observe food prices coming down, the rise in food prices is just much slower than what it was before. So we're not observing that there is no rise in food prices. So that is what worries us. And obviously, as food becomes more and more expensive, people cannot afford food, particularly the majority of South Africans that fall within the poorest category of people. So if they can't afford food, that is a problem for our country and for our people.
Khalirendwe, Ranenyeni, thank you. The Principal Economist at the Competition Commission. Really do appreciate that update on something that is affecting absolutely everyone at the moment.